The reality of being a huge, gigantic dreamer is actually facing the reality. As we are going toward our dreams, the thing that happens is that we lose sight of reality. And that is a very sore point to a dreamer. How do I know? Because that was me. I was born a huge dreamer, but not even, big dreams and I want this and that and this and that. It was, I lived in dreamland in my mind. I was very dreamy. Very analytical and introspective and introverted, and was always so philosophical in my mind of questioning everything and the meaning of life and why am I here at a very, very young age. And so that, I believe, has everything to do with the ability to have big dreams and believe with no evidence, having blind faith that whatever is in my mind and whatever I desire becomes my reality, which is great because that to me is true, and that is truth according to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. I don't even need any evidence. I've done it over and over and over again. But my biggest weakness in looking back, if I were to do it all over again and start from the beginning or start from scratch, the one thing that I would focus on is facing reality and understanding that the sooner I can deal with the reality of life and the realities of life, the happier I'd be along the journey, the easier things would seem, the more gratitude I would have had, and it wouldn't have been so dramatic. Oh my gosh, the highs, the lows, the drama. And there was trauma, no question, but again, there was way more drama that needed to be. And that was because I did not know, nobody told me, because most people don't know either, because our brain will hide it from us, is we don't want to face the reality, especially when it's negative or poor or hurtful or doom and gloom. Nobody wants to face that. And so often in this process of realizing your dreams, your goals, your aspirations, your intentions, and the bigger the better, yes, but also the bigger the breakdowns along the way. And then we have to face the reality. Most of us must build our dreams on the side. The saying goes, don't ever quit your day job, is that if we want to have the most power in life is to be willing to set our egos aside, to set anything that would feed into looking good to other people and looking bad to other people. That's all got to go. We have to let go of that because it's something that holds so many of us back. And it's the fear of criticism, not just self-criticism, because that's a big deal, is the criticism and judgment from others or people thinking less of us because we have to take a day job like a bartender or a waitress, whatever we got to do. And I can speak for myself. I always thought that would be beneath me to be a waiter, waitress. And then I had to open up my eyes and humble myself and say, no, Lady Gaga was a waitress. just 5 years before she really hit it big. 5 years is not a long time. So many mega superstars and successful people in the world were able to do what they had to do to get where they wanted to be. And I have so much respect and adoration for those, and admiration for all of those people. And then I have it for myself now because I was willing to humble myself in the process, especially when I almost lost everything. And I had so many successful, thriving careers. But when I got lost after the death of my sister, and I mean not just lost, it was tragic. I had to reinvent myself and humble myself and say, well, I got to do what I got to do. But I had to let go of the ego part. And that opened up everything for me to where I had this surge of energy to hustle, to do what I got to do. And the very thing that I so admire in people. And I was able to do that for myself. So this is a big deal when it comes to having our big dreams and be willing to do what it takes to get there. And if that means having to, work a couple part-time jobs and build on the side, it's what, gives us the most experience, and it's esteem building and confidence to know that I can look back and say, wow, when the chips were down, I was willing to hustle without compromising my morals, my ethics, my principles, and I didn't take the easy road either. I got creative. And then I also knew that I wasn't going to do anything on the side as I'm rebuilding my dreams. I had to rebuild. That's even harder to do. But I knew that I was never going to compromise my passions and what I enjoy, and I wasn't gonna. It was all going to be legal, moral, and ethical from my standpoint, and something that I could be proud of. And that was a big deal to me. But I don't judge whatever people have to do, but then you got to live with yourself and have that, quote unquote, on your metaphoric rap sheet. So I was willing to go back to waitressing. And as a matter of fact, I was a waitress. I failed miserably because I was so bad at it, because I was so miserable. I was so unhappy to be in that position. But in looking backwards, I'm so proud of myself for being willing to have done that. And I actually believe every human being on the planet could get so much out of working as a waiter or waitress, because it is the most powerful exercise in terms of being of service and really getting outside of ourselves in a profoundly great way. And there's so many benefits to taking that on, because there's a lot of money to be made. Not only is it money, it's cash. And that's exciting. So I absolutely advise you got to do what you got to do, but you still have to be happy in that process and proud of yourself and self-respecting and serving your soul and your spirit. So a lot of times when we, have these big dreams, it's hard to face the reality of looking at the survival obligations of paying rent, paying bills, paying especially for our phones, our mobile phones. And, having a car, maintaining the car, there's just a lot that goes into it. And that means hustling, but hustling on your terms. I I'm willing to hustle all day long as it fits within my dominant need for happiness of a sense of freedom and enjoyment, and then always keep your eye on the prize. You really want to remember, why you're willing to work 2 part-time jobs, a full-time job and another part-time job, and build your dreams on the side. So this requires a lot of determination and self-generation, patience, and being super duper proud of yourself, acknowledging to yourself, praising yourself. It takes an enormous amount of great job and looking backwards and seeing everything as positive. Everything is as good versus bad. And saying, yeah, I'm willing to do what it takes and not compromise who I am, my morals, my ethics, and to stay on the side of, legalities, not crossing the line to do anything that would jeopardize, from a legal sense. And that would obviously be the most self-serving, self-successing thing to do. Is if you want sustainable success, you got to stay within stay on the side of what is going to feed into the maintenance and sustainability of happiness and health and wealth and freedom, self-freedom. And I can't stress enough is the reality. Sometimes what happens is, for instance, the reality of looking at our bank account, seeing the numbers in our bank account that aren't enough to pay the bills, the survival needs. And that automatically triggers us into not enough, not good enough. And it triggers us into, oh no, panic mode and unconscious fear. Well, it's subconscious fear, it's conscious fear, but the deep-seated unconscious fears, it really comes down to, I'm not enough, I'm not worth it, I don't deserve it. And what am I going to do? Poor me, no pun intended. And then we become, guess what? The victim. Oh no, what do I do? It's not worth it. And then we go right into, what's the use? There's no point. And our perceptions get so skewed when we check into reality. And the way around that, the way to counteract that, is to understand this whole thing that I'm talking about, which is what set me free, is not defining ourselves by our bank account numbers. Either way, by the way, big bank account numbers doesn't define you, doesn't make you better than any other human on the planet. It just means you have more dollars in the bank, and then there are numbers that are bigger than the next person, but it doesn't mean you're bigger and better. Either way, it doesn't define us. Either way, it doesn't prove whether we're worthy or unworthy or deserving or undeserving, or good enough or not good enough, or that we are failing or that we are actually a failure. That's a lie. That is something the brain actually believes is true, because it takes whatever we perceive outside of ourselves, and that perception attaches to objective reality, and in our brain it becomes our truth. And so we think, for example, we look at our bank account and we see not enough money in there, so the brain automatically says, not enough money. It also says, I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. And the brain will only focus on that as defining us, because the human brain cannot automatically distinguish between, and this is a subconscious mind, between what is real and what is imagined. And so it registers and computes in our brain and our mind as not enough. And then that unconsciously then translates into a form of us actually saying, I'm not enough. And this is what I realized over and over again for myself in my own life as to I never thought I was enough, good enough. I wasn't pretty enough. I wasn't thin enough. I wasn't rich enough. I wasn't desirable enough. It goes on and on and on and on. Smart enough, talented enough, gifted enough. Unbelievable, popular enough. And it's a perceptive filter that we now view our whole life through, every area of our life. And understanding this weird but incredible phenomenon, I was able to reframe all those perceptions and not define myself by what I have and not have, what I do and what I don't do. Even including having a poor attitude, which I've had over and over again, and not make myself wrong for that or criticize myself. Say, no, I can see why I had a poor attitude. I can see why I was triggered into, I'm not enough, life isn't worth living enough. All these things is because I was defining myself by the numbers. And what happens is that then the disempowering or negative perceptions we have about ourselves and our external world, our circumstances, create our emotions and our feelings. And those emotions and feelings are what either has us be reactive versus proactive. In other words, those emotions dictate our actions or lack thereof. And this is the cause of procrastination, resignation. What's the use? Why bother? And then we act in accordance with that, and we start doing things to sabotage ourselves. And so we sit and scroll social media, or we go and, hang out with people that actually have the same thoughts and habits of not being proactive, not taking matters into their own hands and doing what they need to do to get where they say they want to be. Because at that point, it's all yappity yap. It's all talk and no action. And the thing is, we feel so bad emotionally, and then we don't take the actions that are going to get us to where we say we want to go. And it's counterintuitive. The time we're feeling most down, even a little bit, we're cynical, we're in a bad mood, in a negative mood. That's the time to understand this and go through it in our minds and say, wait a minute, this is a form of self-sabotage. I'm taking myself down. I can't blame anyone or anything outside of myself. I can only really take responsibility within myself and say, yeah, right now it doesn't look good. It looks even a bit poor. It looks, it almost looks like, what's the use? Even a tiny bit hopeless or useless. And that's where we say, wait a minute, but this doesn't define me. I know. And then you have to look backwards at the objective reality that you've already lived in your life and say, wait a minute, I've been here before. I'm just getting a little down on myself because I'm feeling bad about myself and I don't see a way out. Now we instill blind faith, belief, and trust. And you got to look back at your life and go, wait a minute, I remember being in this situation at least 1 or 2 or 3 times. And if I put myself in a poor position, I certainly can put myself in a rich position. I'm not going to lie, it's going to take everything, but it's so worth it. And what we do is we just start looking for the good and remembering that we had the ability to turn things around and be proactive and get into action, little by little by little. And this is where we must believe in ourselves based on the objective reality and use reality for us and not against us. The against is looking at the reality of the bank account numbers or the paychecks coming in or the cash coming in, and it's not coming in and bills are due, and saying, oh, wait a minute, okay, I'm responsible for that. If the money's not there, is because I created it not being there, and I can be responsible and recreate it to come back in. And then once we are able to reframe our perceptions and our views, all of a sudden we feel lighter. We start to feel better. Our mood shifts into a more positive state rather than a negative state. And then instead of fearing it, is wherever we owe money or bills are due, we just communicate with the creditor, with the person we owe money to, the institution. Say, hey, listen, it's been a little tight this month. Can I do a payment plan? And 9.99999 times out of 10, they're like, yes, of course you can. It might cost a little more in the long run, maybe a fee here and there, and then even ask to waive the fees because it's a first-time situation. Although if it's not a first-time situation, which, in the beginning, I realized that because this is exactly what I did. And what I had to do is I had to call up the very people I was ashamed of speaking to because I didn't have the money when I was rebuilding myself from my sister's death and then my own attempted suicide. I had to humble myself once again, take responsibility and call them up and say, hey, listen, I don't have the money. I'm reinventing myself. I had a tragedy. I'm better than ever emotionally, mentally, but I need help. Can I do a payment plan? Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much for calling. Over and over again, this has happened, including the IRS. It's like, wow, thank you. And I had to go through those experiences to realize that, oh my gosh, there's nothing to fear here, because on the other end of that business are other human beings who can relate, and they're always willing to work with you. And if they're not, I have to just sidebar it and keep going, make the money, and come back and say, hey, listen, you weren't willing to work with me. You did what you had to do. I'd like to pay the money back if you'll take the money. And it might even be too late, so it's on my credit. Big deal. I had to learn that the hard way. Is that doesn't define me. My credit doesn't define me. My credit score doesn't define me. Nothing defines me except me. Me loving me and respecting me unconditionally. That's all that matters. Over and over and over again. And counterintuitively, the more I respected myself, didn't criticize or judge myself, the more I fell in love with myself, the more I felt worthy and deserving. And that just exuded outward where, guess what? That's a very high vibration. That's very attractive and magnetic. And it drew in more people and the people that I wanted to hang around. I don't want to hang around other medically poorly minded, poorly hearted people. No, thank you. I already have enough trouble with myself. Why would I want to do that to myself? And as I continued to make little payments to everybody that I owed, I was able to rebuild better than I ever could have imagined. And this little by little paid everybody off. Yeah, so I paid more interest. Yeah, so I paid more late fees. Who cares? Because it freed me up to have the energy to want to pay them. They deserve it. Yeah, if I'm late, I'm late. Without them, I wouldn't have a phone. Without them, I wouldn't have Wi-Fi, internet service. I mean, hello. And I had to even figure that out and reframe my perceptions. It goes on and on and on. I'm, happy to pay that if they're extending and giving me more time to pay my bills when things are up and down. Especially, I come from all entrepreneurial careers where I'm responsible for making the money and having the money come in. Oh, but when I was a personal trainer, when I first started, I did have a day job. It was a great day job. I got to work at, Gold's Gym in Venice, and it was amazing. I had a paycheck, but I only did that job in looking back. But when that didn't work out and I had to go and create something, I had no money coming in. This is how I did it over and over again. And the more I just believed something was going to happen, I have this very, thank goodness, optimistic attitude of, okay, it wasn't meant to be. You can call it a spiritual attitude. Doesn't really matter. Is that, okay, that happened, wasn't meant to be. The way that happened doesn't seem right to me. There's got to be something good on the other side, because that's usually what happens in my life, because I've done it over and over again. Sure enough, I had an opportunity to start my own business, but I was responsible for all that money. So I just stayed in high gear, and I just kept going, and exactly what I'm telling you right now is I kept a very hopeful, optimistic attitude, and I kept showing up over and over again. I kept showing up and doing the best job possible, teaching the next class. And then with that positive attitude, and I attracted clients and became a personal trainer. It's just one thing led to another, and it was because I was willing to take 100% responsibility, hold myself accountable, and do what I had to do, and show up with a positive, optimistic attitude, believing and having faith that it's going to work itself out. And it always has. Always has. And you can never ever lose. Even if you're the most, negative person on the planet, it will still work. But it's up to each individual to be willing to try something new, to take another outlook on themselves, yourselves, and life, or not. And then you get to look backward at your reality and see how it's going. Someone with a poor attitude creates poorness in life, and someone with a rich attitude creates richness in their life. Again, I know I've been there both ways. I had the poorest attitude. Of course I did. Who would not have a poor attitude after I tried to save my sister's life to no avail, clearly failed at that. But through the process of losing her, I realized I can't save anybody's life. That's ridiculous. But, after she dies, I had a very poor outlook, a very poor attitude. I had a very, worse than poor. I had a very dark, hateful attitude, and a very, an attitude that was very, very, dark and scary. And so my whole life, everything you could track it like clockwork. Everything around me was just as dark. And then when I shifted, thanks to this work and all my studies and transformation and consciousness, and applying it to myself, and then figuring things out for myself based on my own life, I did exactly what I'm telling you. And now it's even easier and better. I don't have to worry so much about being at the effect of my emotions and my feelings. And I can virtually, trottle through life, not being at the effect of circumstances, not letting the reality of whatever is happening in my life, people know people, money know money, opportunities know opportunities, clients know clients, whatever I'm creating, whether it's there or not, I have the power within myself to reframe my perceptions, knowing that that's what creates the emotions and feelings, knowing those emotions and feelings, right, will dictate my actions or my lack of action, or whether I'm taking positive actions or negative actions that are going to get me to my dreams faster versus actions that are going to take me down and sabotage me from my dreams. And over again, that formula applies. Even when I see nothing happening, even when I see no results, no prizes, no rewards, I say no. I know what the fastest way to our dreams is having a very powerful outlook with a lot of faith and trust, patience with myself and everyone and everything in the world, and going, okay, no, and stay connected to my passion. Stay connected to why I am willing to do what I got to do to get where I want to be and accomplish what I want to accomplish and achieve what I want to achieve, and to have the material things that I if I want it, I can have it. I don't need to justify it. I don't need to apologize for it, but I will never, ever, ever consciously use anything or anyone outside of myself to define my worth, to define whether I'm good enough or bad enough, to define my life or my purpose or my mission or my divine calling. That's what I know now. And it does not work. So freeing ourselves up in our energy, the best part is it sends out a very high, rich, wealthy, vibrational frequency, a very happy, generous energy. And that's when the magic happens, the miracles come in. That's when the next opportunity comes by, or the next human being shows up that we connect with that says, oh, as a matter of fact, somebody's looking for this. Let me make the connection. Let me connect you with that person, and maybe that's a viable option for some side work, or for a client, or for even just a friendship, a relationship, whatever it is. And we keep going and keep going, and that's when, the bank account starts filling up, so to speak. Things start clicking and working again. We are now in that flow state, the in the zone state, and things just start working in our favor. And I can only tell you by experience, over and over again. But you want to stop yourself the minute you see, oh gosh, I see no money, I see no opportunities, I see no clients, I see no, part-time jobs, I'm feeling bad. You stop, take a breath, reconnect to your passions, and say, yeah, I'm willing to do what I got to do. The reality is I want to, live in my own apartment, and I have rent to pay. So I'm going to be responsible for that rent. I don't even know what it looks like. I don't even know how. But I'm not going to take myself down. I'm not going to be my own worst enemy. I'll figure out a way. I have figured out a way up until this point. And that means even being willing to borrow money, take out another loan, even be gifted money, or ask for an early birthday present, an early Christmas present. So many options and opportunities. And definitely calling the people we owe and say, hey, listen, I've hit a little snafu. I love that word. Can I do a payment plan? Can you give me a little more time to make a payment? And then that takes that stress off your plate. And again, most of the time they're going to say, sure, thanks for calling. We really appreciate it. And I always say, make sure you notate my account, that I'm on it, and I'll be back with you to make that payment over and over again. You don't want to attach yourself to anything. You don't want to define yourself by anyone or anything, including your debt. Okay, and this is a big thing with the money. It's a big deal. That's why I focus on it at this point in my career and teach it, because it is so weird. I just was watching a sitcom, and it's a brilliant line. There's this morning. And it's like the saying goes, we all want money, but we never want to talk about it. And it's like so true. Oh my God, that's so brilliant. So true. We all want it. But why are we not talking about it? Why are we not bringing it up? Why are we not digging deep into those subconscious and unconscious wounds around money issues? Way back from our earlier fundamental years. Yeah. Because nobody ever thinks to talk about it. I mean, a few of us do, but that's why I said, that's my jam. Let's do this. So, here you have it. Don't define yourself by numbers and by people, whether you're in a relationship, not in a relationship, and whether he or she likes you or texts you back or not. No. Come back to why you respect yourself, why you're proud of yourself, why you think you're awesome, and you are. Every human being on the planet is awesome, okay? But it doesn't matter what my opinion is. And we all have our strengths and weaknesses. We all have our pros and cons, and we all definitely have our poor attitudes and our rich attitudes, bar none. It levels the playing field. Every human being is the same to some degree or another, okay? But we don't want to define ourselves by that. We get to create in our minds. If the subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined, then ta-da, consciously we can imagine how amazing we are, how good we are, how worthy we are, how deserving we are. And we don't even need to justify it. That was a big thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't need to justify it. I don't need to I have every right to want what I want and get what I want and then be okay with it, regardless of what anyone else says, thinks, or does. And we can agree to disagree and just leave it at that. So you get to say who you are and who you're not. You're the only one that matters is you, to yourself and your inner child and your inner teen, inner adolescent, okay, inner young adult. That's the 18, 19-year-old. You get to say, and you get to choose. Do not buy into other people's opinions and perceptions of you. And keep your eyes on the prize, on your passion, on your purpose, on your pleasures, on what makes you happy and what you want to create for your life in the scheme of your dreams for yourself. And reconnect to that. Let go of any fear. Nothing defines you. Now you have a new sense of clarity, and now you can feel better and go, okay, I'm ready to take action. What does it look like? Okay, here are things that I really enjoy. I could make it, oh my gosh. Matter of fact, someone just asked my mom's friend's father needs somebody to help move. I'll see if that's still available. He said he'd even pay me a couple of bucks. That's what my mom said. I'm going to go check to see if that's even available and hustle. See if I can go and make a few quick bucks helping somebody out, working for this person. Okay, maybe I can go and help do some gardening or landscaping for somebody. See what's available. You start to get really creative. And this is what I did over and over again. Oh, okay, I got these horses. I'm going to start giving some horseback riding lessons. I didn't even think of it. And the next thing you know, bloop, I meet a couple of people like, yeah, I'd love to take horseback riding lessons. It wasn't something that I set out to do. Those horses, I created my horses for me, for my fun, for my pleasure, for me to enjoy. Because I love horses and I want horses. So that's my playtime. But then I realized, wait a minute, because I never intended to teach, but I could certainly teach. And that's how I've made a lot of extra money, as I was rebuilding. Okay, so there you have it. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to continue to believe in yourself and in your dreams and create it and make it happen by taking responsibility